Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Pow, and today I'm doing week 22 of my 2021 reads. This week I finished quite a few things, half of which are things that I talked about in the weekend reading vlog that I posted somewhat recently, so I will post that below as well. So if you want to skip over those and just go to the new things, feel free. There are always timestamps as well as content warnings in the description box below. Also, at the end of this video, I want to really briefly talk about something weird that YouTube is doing with comments, just to give you guys a heads up. The first book that I finished was Here by Richard McGuire. This is a graphic work that I'd heard about from Rincey at Rincey Reads, who I will link below, and it is something that is perhaps a little influential in terms of doing something very new in graphic works. It takes a scene, like one location, a living room, and shows that exact scene throughout time, mainly for the past few centuries, but also going way back and way forward in time as well. And we see that scene with little boxes of different time periods overlaid. And so we can see different things that were happening at different periods in time. So it's a really cool concept, and I thought that was really neat. However, the book is kind of long, it's like 300 pages long, and the concept was great for like the first 20 pages, and then it was just a little dull. I didn't find that there was necessarily a huge through line of the story exactly. It felt more like it was all about the form and less about the story itself. So overall, I thought this was neat, but it wasn't excellent. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I finished The World of Mucha by Hiroshi Unno. This is an art book about a famous Art Nouveau artist, Alphonse Mucha, and this is a book that is written in Japanese, but has about 1/3 of it translated into English. And the parts that are translated are really the big parts talking about Mucha's life. The parts that aren't translated are little asides about various smaller topics, or the kind of captions for each of the different images explaining kind of their context, where they're from, etc., some timelines, things like that. So I just read it in English, and I still think it was very, very informative and worthwhile, but the real point of this book is the pictures. Oh my gosh, Mucha's artwork was just fantastic. I love Art Nouveau work, and I loved seeing all of the different things that he had worked on. So I thoroughly enjoyed reading through this book, and if you have any interest in Art Nouveau, I definitely recommend it. I will also link below a website where you can just check out Mucha's work for free and take a look at it if you want to do that. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Next, I finished Sigh by Phuc Tran. This is a memoir about Tran growing up as a Vietnamese refugee to a small town in Pennsylvania with his family in the 1970s. And it's really a coming of age story. It's about him trying to kind of fit in and find his place in this small American town, but also rejecting the town in a lot of ways, and growing up to be someone who very much went into the punk scene and was rebellious in a lot of ways. It's also talking about quite a bit of generational trauma and the very difficult circumstances with his parents. Do read the content warnings below if you have any triggers for like child abuse, things like that. It's also just really beautifully written with a lot of extremely cool vocabulary. Phuc Tran is, I think, a Latin teacher and also has extensively studied like classical literature. You can really see it in the way that he writes, and each of the chapters is actually titled after a famous work of literature, and in that chapter Phuc Tran explores that period of his life relating to that work of literature, sort of in this idea that literature is something that can bring people of all sorts of disparate experiences together. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and if you like memoirs at all, definitely pick this up. Next, I finished The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly by Sun-Mi Hwang, translated from Korean by Chi-Young Kim, illustrated by Nomoco. And the illustrations in this were really, really cute, by the way. So this is sort of a contemporary literary fiction type of work that I'd heard about from Freddie at Sluggish Reader. I will link him and his review of this book below, so do check those out. This is kind of a story about a hen. So all of the characters in this are barnyard animals and wild animals. And this hen lays eggs all the time, but the farmer just takes her eggs away, and she's very listless. She has no purpose in life. She really wants to raise a baby, but her eggs keep being taken away. And so this is about her journey to kind of finding that fulfillment in life and really rejecting a lot of the system that is keeping her down. So I loved the themes of kind of bucking the system, you know, rejecting the patriarchy, doing your own thing, and kind of how that might separate you from the rest of society and what the consequences as well as the benefits of that are. So really cool discussions there. However, a lot of this book didn't kind of work for me because it has this real heavy emphasis on sacrificing everything for motherhood, and I just couldn't quite get behind that. So really cool. It's only a very, very short book, maybe like 115 pages. Not quite my thing, but I could still see a lot of value in this, and I do recommend checking Freddie's review out if you want somebody who like really loved it. So I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read another translated literary fiction, Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera, translated from Spanish by Lisa Dillman. This is a book that I buddy read with Cynthia at BookWhimsy, who I will link below, and we loved this book. We're actually going to do a discussion video about that, so sometime soonish. That will be up on one of our channels. I had such a great time reading this with Cynthia. I mean, not only because the book was so great, but because this is the sort of book that really could deal with a lot of discussion and analysis. It's also a very short book. It's like 100 pages, and it is so good. So this is the story of Makina, who is kind of a switchboard operator and translator in her hometown in basically Mexico. I don't think it's explicitly said. And she needs to go across the border, again, not explicitly said, but to the US, to retrieve her brother, who had gone there searching for some land before, but he's been missing for a while, and her mother wants him back. So this story is so interesting in that it is very much a literary fiction, but it has this feel of kind of a fantastical quest. Even though there's not exactly magic in any of this, it just feels so magical in the way that she is going on this journey, and she is constantly kind of having to do these little mini quests, and the characters that she meets, and it's just, the writing is so beautiful. It is got a very, very unique narrative style, and it's so cool. So this is such a very cool book. It is really short, has excellent themes, just talking about immigration and about culture and about when you move from one place to another, how are you perceived and how do you adapt and how are you connected back home. There's so many great discussions of those themes in this book, and it is just really beautifully written and translated. I wish I could read the original Spanish because this was so cool. I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I definitely recommend it. Next, I read another book that I absolutely fell in love with, which was This Strange Way of Dying by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a collection of dark fantasy short stories, and it was so wonderful. I, in general, really love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing, and this was just the epitome of everything I love. It has all of the myths and the Mexican history and the atmosphere and the creepiness and the feminist themes, everything that I'm looking for when I pick up something by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and all of the short stories are just so unique and so interesting. I love the way that she explores so many different myths and topics and historical periods. Really, absolutely loved this short story collection. I will have a review of this coming up later this week. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I really strongly recommend that you pick this up if you like short stories, if you like dark fantasy, if you like myth, folklore, any of that. And lastly, I read a couple of picture books, starting with Crossing Bok Chitto by Tim Tingle, illustrated by Jean Rorix Bridges. This is a story that is about some Choctaw history / folklore, and it is telling the story of a group of Choctaw Indians who maybe in the 18th or 19th century were across the river from a plantation where there were black slaves. And it's about a little Choctaw girl making friends with a little black boy and sort of helping each other. It has a lot of hope and it's really kind of like a faith or magic-based solution to a lot of what is happening in this. And it's like a traditional story in that indigenous group. So this is a really sweet story. It has a lot of hope in it. I thought that the writing was a little bit simpler than I kind of wanted. I've read other things by Tim Tingle, some middle grade, that I really liked, but this one was a little simpler than I wanted. The illustration style, I really loved the way that the illustrator did like backgrounds, but not people. All of the people had the exact same face, regardless of age, gender, race, anything. That was the exact same face, which was just a little disconcerting somehow reading through this. So not quite so much my style. But I still think this was a really interesting story. And if you want to hear some Choctaw stories, this is a great one to pick up. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the other picture book I read was The 4 Questions by Lynn Sharon Schwartz, illustrated by Ori Sherman. This was so cool. First of all, the illustrations were fantastic. So the illustrations in this are all of kind of anthropomorphic animals, and they're in really, really bright colors with really bold lines. It's very, very cool illustrations. And the story itself is actually fascinating. So what this is it is a book explaining Passover. So Passover in Judaism is kind of like the story of when the Israeli people got free of Egypt when they were enslaved there. So Moses, that sort of thing. And this is really explaining the Passover dinner. So when Passover dinner happens, there are like 4 questions that are asked, and there are a lot of ceremonies that are gone through. And you also explain the history of Passover, which is that escape from Egypt. I have participated in a Passover dinner before. A friend invited me, and I thought it was so cool, just all of the very ceremonial things that you go through. And I thought that this book did a great job of kind of walking you through Passover dinner. And so it was just such a great read. If you're at all interested in sort of other religions and understanding some of the traditions that they have, I think this is really great to pick up, and it's so beautifully illustrated. So I loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so that's everything that I read this week. The other thing I wanted to talk about really briefly was YouTube comments. So recently, YouTube has been really weird about comments in that a number of comments just disappear. So sometimes I'll get a notification that somebody has commented on a video, and it'll give me like the first line of the comment. But when I click on it, it is not there. It just doesn't exist. And if I go into YouTube Studio, it's not waiting for approval. It just has vanished into the ether. And this is a thing that actually has continued to be a problem when it comes to using the word queer when you type a message. So Kathy at Kathy Trithardt, I'll link her video below, has actually talked about this. And part of it is just the content moderation machine learning algorithm that YouTube uses kind of deletes a lot of things that it thinks might be hate speech, and because queer is so heavily associated with hate speech, it just gets deleted. So heads up for anybody, we're going into Pride Month. If you're leaving comments on anybody's video, don't type the word queer. I think it should be okay if you do like an asterisk instead of one of the letters in queer, or if you use LGBT or something like that. But if you type the word queer, probably your comment will be eaten and the YouTuber will not be able to see it or respond to it. But even things that I have a feeling don't have the word queer in them have recently started disappearing. And sometimes I have no way to respond to the person. So for example, Tiffany and Thomas, left comments in the past couple weeks and I cannot see them or respond to them, and I'm sorry. I think that, you know, there's this feeling of being a little bit guilty because you don't want people to feel like you're ignoring them. I do try to comment or at least heart pretty much every comment that I get. So if you don't get a response from me, it might be because YouTube has eaten your comment. So just wanted to give you guys the heads up that that's happening. It's a little weird. In any case, if you guys have read any of the books that I talked about this week, if you have any thoughts, any recommendations, anything you want to chat with me about, just leave me a comment down below.